7, 6, 5.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our Facebook Live Career Chat where we will be discussing driving your success at career fairs. My name is Anna Valegia. I am the Director of Alumni Career Services for the NC State Alumni Association, and we are very excited to have Christina Blazak here with us from Credit Suisse. So just to give you a little bit of information about Christina, she is the Director of Credit Suisse in the CFO division based in Raleigh, North Carolina. She currently serves as the Director of Global Macro and Repo Product Control, having previously held roles in Prime Services, Product Control, and Product Control Operational Risk. Christina joined Credit Suisse in 2006 from Progress Energy. Christina received her Bachelor's of Science in Textile and Apparel Management from NC State University. She represents Credit Suisse on North Carolina State University's Poole College of Management Advisory Board and serves as Credit Suisse's campus captain. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Anna. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we are very excited. So upcoming is our 2019 Alumni Career Fair sponsored by Credit Suisse. So we are very excited to get a behind the scenes look at what employers are really looking for from attendees at career fairs. So we're just going to go ahead and get started.
Sure.
So one question that I get a lot since I work with alumni is that they don't know if they need to attend career fairs because they think it's maybe just for current students or recent graduates. So from your perspective, who should really be attending career fairs?
Great question. I mean, I think career fairs are a tool that every job seeker should have in their toolbox. They are just a really efficient and effective way to interact with a large number of employers who are looking to hire. I think career fairs can be particularly valuable for a subset of the population. So for example, if you're looking to make a career shift or change industries, career fairs are a good way to speak to employers, speak to hiring managers and recruiters, give them some background on your prior role, and really let them know what's prepared you to make this shift and what skills you'll be bringing with you from your prior experience. I think there are other non-traditional candidates, like maybe non-traditional disciplines. So particularly for new graduates going into junior level roles, it's a great place to, again, sell your skill set versus your degree. So just using even, my role as a hiring manager as an example, I work in finance. So we typically target business, accounting, and econ majors. But through career fairs, I've been able to speak with candidates from non-business disciplines that really have great background and experience and a very well-rounded skill set. And when we've been able to progress those candidates through the interviewing and hiring process because of that personal interaction. And I think for employers, particularly for those entry-level roles, it's not so much about the degree. We can do training on the job. It's really about finding talented candidates who are engaged and enthusiastic. And probably the final group where I'll say, career fairs can be a really great tool are for folks that may have gaps in their resume. So regardless of the reason for the gap, it's just a great place to express your desire to re-enter the workforce and to talk about how you've maintained your skills while you were away.
So it sounds like most people, I feel
everybody
could fully benefit from going.
Absolutely.
So do you feel like it's just for somebody looking for work? I know you kind of mentioned the career changer, the recent graduate, but what do you feel about somebody that maybe has been in the same company for a while and maybe they're not actively looking? Would you suggest that they attend?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a lot of upside to attending a career fair, no matter where you are. If you're a new graduate looking to enter the workforce for the first time, or an experienced job seeker, again, career fairs are just a great way to interact with a lot of employers. I think that 99% of the job seekers out there are aware of some of the top companies, particularly locally, and will target them in a job search. But career fairs can expand your horizons and really introduce you to a lot of other employers that you may not be familiar with, but that may have openings that are a great match for your background and experience.
Absolutely.
So I think that's just super important in terms of having that broad-based exposure. Through the career fairs, I also find that you can really develop those personal relationships and help differentiate yourself in the hiring process. So, you can really add that background to how you present yourself on paper through the resume.
Yeah, and just the opportunity to network with that
Absolutely.
many people in one room at one time. Absolutely. So for someone who is planning to attend a career fair, how should they prepare? So like day before, week before, what does that preparation look like?
I think a job seeker should prepare for career fairs in the same way that they prepare for a formal interview. Be prepared to speak to your background and your experience. If you're going to bring a resume and give that out at the career fair, make sure that you can speak to all of the points on that resume in the event the employer asks. And the other thing I would say is really do your homework on the employers that are going to be there as well. So if there are particular companies that you're targeting, make sure you do some research on them, understand what may be new and noteworthy in their industry, in their market, and also be prepared to speak to any jobs you've already applied for with that employer. It's a great opportunity to bring up those roles and just re-express your interest.
Yeah, absolutely. So what should somebody wear to a career fair?
Oh my goodness.
Not wear.
Well, you may be interested to know that internally we actually talk about this a lot as an employer. And for us, it's about striking the right balance between coming across as professional, but also not being viewed as too stuffy, compared to our peers who are at the career fair. We want to make a good impression with the candidates just as much as they want to make a good impression with us. But from the candidate's perspective, I still prefer business to business casual attire. I think it's really important to make good first impression with the employer. But I'll say the main thing is you don't want your attire to detract from your message. You want the employer to leave remembering your skills and your experience and not, remembering you for your attire.
That is a great way to put it. So as far as when you are at the table for someone coming up to you, do you prefer resumes, business cards?
Yeah.
Is there a preference?
Me personally, as a hiring manager, I love getting a hard copy of the resume at the career fair. And there are a couple reasons for that. It kind of allows me to quickly scan a candidate's background and experience and maybe ask some clarifying questions, in the moment. It also allows me to maybe jot down notes. So anything the candidate articulates during our conversation that maybe isn't on their resume, I can jot down very quickly. And then finally, when I get back to the office, it just gives me that tool for, candidates that stood out or who have a good skill set match for my open roles, where I can reach out to my recruiting team and very quickly say, I'd like to progress this candidate through our process.
Gotcha.
I think business cards have increased in popularity recently, but from a Credit Suisse perspective, we don't really have a great mechanism for storing business cards. And a lot of the information on those business cards is also on the resume. So they're, while some employers may like them, for us, they're not really necessary.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. So kind of shifting a little bit to the employer perspective. So I think sometimes when I speak to people who might attend a career fair, I don't know if they truly always realize that companies typically pay money to attend career fairs, sometimes a lot of money to attend career fairs. So why do companies do it? What are they hoping to get out of it? And how do they decide what to go to?
Sure. Yeah, great question. As an organization, we attend for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, we're always looking to maintain our candidate pipeline. So we want to attend a career fair to really speak to as many candidates as possible and then identify those candidates from the event that have a good skill set match so that we can fill those open roles within our organization. So that's a very tangible benefit. The other reason we would attend is just to continue to increase our brand awareness and our presence on campus and in the community. We really want people to understand who we are, what our business model is, and how they can have a career with Credit Suisse.
Gotcha. So when the company decides, okay, yes, we're going to attend the career fair, how do they decide who to send? Because a lot of times what I tell participants in a career fair is that, the company selected this person to represent their organization. So that typically will show you whether or not that's a place that you want to be. But from the employer's perspective, how do you choose who to send?
Yeah, it's a great question because as I mentioned earlier, we really want to put our best foot forward as an employer as well. So first and foremost, we're always going to send our fabulous recruiting team. They are really adept at speaking to candidates about our organization and about what roles we have open at any given point in time. We also try to send a selection of hiring managers who have openings at the time of the career fair. So that's really important for us because having the candidates speak to hiring managers during the event can really help make that connection with background and experience to a role within our company. So it allows the hiring manager to ask very targeted questions and also allows the job seeker, to ask very specific questions about the role.
Yeah.
And for us, if we have a hiring manager that also happens to have a connection to the university, I think that's even better because they can really help potential candidates to visualize what a career path through our organization might look like.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of maybe see themselves in the first.
That's right. That's right.
So for somebody who's attending the career fair, I know you kind of mentioned all these wonderful benefits of it, but how do they calm their nerves? I think a lot of times, there might be hundreds of employers in the room at times. So what suggestions would you have for that?
Yeah, career fairs can definitely be intimidating and overwhelming if you're not prepared. So my best advice is be prepared, be authentic, and be yourself. You are best placed to speak to your background, your skill set, and what's going to make you a valuable addition to any organization. So just be confident about that. And I think that confidence will come across.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is if you're nervous, take a couple minutes in between booths. It'll give you an opportunity to maybe jot down notes from the last employer you spoke with, maybe some follow-ups, and then also mentally prepare yourself for speaking with the next employer.
Yeah.
I found that can be very effective.
Yeah, and I know one thing that we've started doing now just at NC State for career fairs is we have an app where you can actually do research, put notes in the app, and then you can kind of take a break, see what your notes are, and then go to the next person.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's
so give you it has. So it gives you, so they're not jotting down notes. They're using the app.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. We encourage the app. So, one thing you talk about was, somebody basically articulating why they might be good fit for the organization. So talk a little bit more about maybe preparing an elevator pitch. Sometimes when you hear that, it just sounds so formal, but kind of talk about what you really want to hear from someone when they approach you.
Yeah, career fairs are a great place to tell your story. And most times employers attending the career fair aren't looking to go into the same level of depth as they will during a formal interview process.
Right.
So really the job seeker is in the driver's seat there. It is your opportunity to really present 2 to 3 key points that you want the employer to know about you when they walk away from the career fair. So, for an elevator pitch, practice really does make perfect. So make sure you're honing that speech or that presentation with peers or mentors so that when you attend the career fair, it really comes off as very polished.
Gotcha. But is there a difference between polish and rehearse, like almost like robotic?
Yeah, you have to give some space in there for the specifics of the day. So what the what the employer may be asking you, how your prior conversation may have played into, the elevator pitch, and even, how the specific company or role you're interested in within the organization can impact that. But I find if you have a good base to start off from, you're much more comfortable making those tweaks on the fly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess let's sort of talk about that. So from the company side, you're at a career fair, you're standing behind your table, someone comes up to you. What are you hoping to gain from that person approaching you?
Yeah, really we're looking to understand their background, understand their experience, what their skill set is, and how they might fit into our organization. We really enjoy speaking with candidates who are enthusiastic and engaged and excited to be there and speak with us.
Okay. So I guess, what are some things that people should avoid doing? So I don't know if you have experiences for maybe not so great situations where people approach you. What are some things that you would definitely say, don't do?
I think I've been very fortunate because most of the individuals that I've come into contact with at career fairs have been very prepared. And really, the candidates have a vested interest in making the most of that opportunity as much as we do. I will say what makes it difficult for us as employers is if the candidate isn't prepared to talk to their background and experience, or if they aren't prepared to ask questions. I mean, that's the career fair is the opportunity to do that. So it's very difficult, if candidates aren't prepared to have that back and forth discussion with you.
So preparing questions.
That's right.
Yes.
I will say one of our recruiters did share another story with me though before this event where at one of the career fairs, there was a job seeker going from booth to booth, just grabbing the swag off the tables. So that might be something to avoid.
Yeah. And how do you feel about a candidate that maybe didn't do research on your organization, just comes up and is like, oh, what does Credit Suisse do?
We're definitely not opposed to educating people about Credit Suisse, about what we do, and about what job opportunities are available to folks within our organization. That's part of the reason why we're there.
Sure.
But I think you just differentiate yourself if you have done that preparation in advance and you stand out a little more to the employer.
Gotcha. So how does one become memorable, right? Because you probably see hundreds of participants at the career fair. So what makes somebody stand out to you?
I really think it's those individuals and we've said it a couple of times, who are just ready to tell you how their skill set might fit into your organization, and who have done their homework and asked questions that really drive at ensuring there's a good match, between the candidate and the employer. Those tend to be folks that are memorable. I mean, as a hiring manager, I'm also, always looking for folks who would, be good fits within my open roles. Our recruiters are always looking kind of more broad-based across the organization. But I think just being able to make that connection and articulate your skill set is critical.
Gotcha. And I guess from a company standpoint, if there is maybe a recruiter there, a hiring manager, I guess I'm just trying to make a point. Do they talk to each other? So if somebody does come up and they're like, oh, well, you're not the person I really need to talk to, right? So you don't want to have that perception. So I guess, what does the dialogue look like between individuals within your company?
Sure, yeah. After any career fair, when we go back to the office, as a hiring manager, I am looking at individuals I may have spoken with who would be a good fit for a role in my organization or for other openings that I'm aware of. And I'm really looking to, progress those individuals through our hiring process. Our recruiters are sharing, resumes that they received with all of their recruiting colleagues within the firm. And they're also looking more broadly across the organization and seeing where there's a good skill set match between candidates from the career fair and open roles within the organization. And they're getting those resumes out to hiring managers. We have an internal candidate tracking tool. So all of the resumes that we receive from the career fair go into that tool so that we can thank the candidates for attending, and also so that we have a way to formally track them, through our recruiting process.
Gotcha.
So if you come to the career fair, if you meet with somebody from Credit Suisse and give us your resume, we're going to be taking it back with us.
Perfect. And I do, I have a couple more questions that I can get through. I do want to just say, if anybody has questions, feel free to send them in and we can get them answered for you. So for somebody who, let's say, went to a career fair, they leave, what do they do after the career fair? What are some best practices?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key is to maintain the momentum that you gain during the career fair. So you've made connections with employers, and it's about following up on those. So to the degree you got contact information and email address, be sure you're following up with people to express your continued interest. And if you discussed applying for a specific role, make sure that as part of that follow-up, you're letting the contact from the company know that you've done that, so that they can make sure they're tracking that throughout the process. But it's really about following up and just maintaining that momentum and connection.
Yeah. So, I do hear from some alums that I meet with that if they go to a career fair, sometimes they aren't able to get any information. Like they said, they don't have a business card or so what are some best practices in that case in order to try to follow up with that person?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a lot of platforms now where you can connect with people, LinkedIn and other professional networks being one of those, where most people, hiring managers and recruiters who are attending career fairs, are happy for you to reach out to them, using some of those platforms. I don't think there's any circumstance where a recruiter or a hiring manager, wouldn't be happy to connect to a job seeker, in that way.
Yeah. Is it pretty common for people to follow up? Is that something you see often? I hear that advice all the time, and I don't know if it's actually people execute on that.
So, yeah, I mean, I've had lots of people reach out to me and connect after career fairs, either through direct email or, through LinkedIn. And, just to give you an example of kind of the reverse of that, I've taken resumes back from the career fair, immediately sent them off to my recruiters, and we've started processing people, for interviews and pre-screens, so that we can get them in. So, that goes both ways. Follow up from the employer side is critical as well.
Yep. And it works. I mean, just from personal experience, I got an internship and full-time job from career fairs. So I know that they can work if you're doing all the things that you are talking about. So
no, I have a very similar experience. You mentioned earlier that I graduated from NC State with a degree in textile and apparel management, and I attended an employer-sponsored event my senior year in school with a local utility. And, by attending that event and making a personal connection with the recruiter and hiring manager there, and being able to articulate how my background and experience could translate into their organization, I really credit that connection with ultimately receiving a full-time offer for employment. So I can't agree enough. I think career fairs and networking events are a great place to really enhance your job search.
Absolutely. We are on the same page with that. So, okay, when you bring back this stack of resumes from a career fair, from the company, you kind of mentioned some dialogue that happens, but I mean, what do you do with this stack of papers?
For me specifically as a hiring manager, again, if there are candidates I've identified that really fit well with an open role I have, I am really immediately sending those over to my recruiter to get those people started through our recruiting process. So pre-screening and interview scheduling. For our recruiters, I think it's slightly different because they are looking more broad-based across the organization. So they're loading those applications, or those resumes into our candidate tracking tool. They're picking out specific resumes to send to hiring managers depending on their needs. And then they're sharing those with other recruiters, just so we're making sure everybody's seeing the full population of candidates.
Okay. So it doesn't just go into a black hole like people say when they apply.
No, at least not at Credit Suisse.
Very good. So I guess at the end of the day, and we sort of have touched on this, but just from your perspective, how do you, what are your expectations for return on investment from, because like we said, you pay money to go to these career fairs. How do you judge whether or not they were successful at the end of the day?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the most tangible benefit for us as an organization is how many roles we were able to fill off the back of any recruiting event. So that can really tell us, where we're getting the most bang for our buck from a recruiting perspective. I think there are some other intangible things that we take from the career fair. So even for, candidates that we maybe didn't make an immediate connection with, I think just increasing our, awareness of our company and of the career paths we have to offer within the community, and maybe making that connection with a hire down the road is also very important for us.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I guess from that standpoint, maybe you meet somebody at the career fair and you think they're a great candidate, but you don't have something immediately for them. Is there anything that happens with that?
I mean, yeah, I think it goes both ways. I think sometimes we interact with candidates who maybe don't have the right skill set for our organization at that specific point in time, but maybe that's something they develop through, another career path, and then they ultimately make their way back to us, and vice versa. We meet candidates who have great skill sets, but perhaps we don't have an immediate opening. That's one of the great things about our candidate tracking tool is we can keep track of those candidates and reach out to them and contact them at a future point.
Yeah. And I guess just kind of to that point too, one thing that I do hear from people who attend career fairs is a little bit of frustration when the company just says, go online and apply. Do you have any suggestions or feedback for them?
Yeah, I can totally empathize with that from the job seeker's perspective. But the online application process is a very valuable one for us. It does allow us to see, candidates against very specific job openings, but also by attending the career fair, by making that personal connection, by making our recruiters and hiring managers aware of your background and your skills and your interests, I really think that you've differentiated yourself and you just have a leg up in that recruiting process.
Right. And
so,
they can still ask you more questions.
Absolutely,
it's not like you just
absolutely.
Have to go, okay, I'll go online and then just walk away.
That's right. That's right. That's just part of the dialogue.
Right.
We're still very open to questions, very open to talking about what our specific openings are and helping to help the job seeker navigate to those, even through our online presence.
Perfect. Well, that's pretty much all we have for today. But is there anything else that you want to leave with as far as, just people looking to attend career fairs, companies?
Well, I would encourage folks who are interested in attending a career fair to come out to the Alumni Career Fair sponsored by Credit Suisse on Wednesday, May the 15th at Reynolds Coliseum. So I will be there along with some colleagues from Credit Suisse, and we would love to meet a lot of folks there.
Yeah, and you can put into practice all of the wonderful advice that was shared today. So, well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Anna. I enjoyed it.
All right, well, go pack and howl back.